So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my images. It's in my Finder under Photos, and I took a photograph of a mug that I really like from several different angles. And I think I'm going to trace this one. So I'm just going to click and drag that to bring it into Illustrator, and it's going to open up in its own artboard. That's fine. The first thing I want to do is I want to scale this down. This is a huge image, and if I look at my artboard is 4 by 6 inches. I'm just going to change that to 8 by 10 inches. Okay, increase my artboard size, but I'm still going to scale down my photograph. And I'm going to lock the layer that it's on. It's very important that you lock the layer that your photograph is on, because otherwise you might accidentally move it, and that's going to affect your tracing. I'm going to create a new layer that sits above my photograph layer, and I'm going to grab my pen tool and I'm going to start drawing. Before I start drawing, one last thing I want to look at is the fill and stroke. I do not want to fill, so I'm going to turn off my fill, and I do want to stroke, but I want a stroke that I can see, so I'm going to change the color to something that's really vibrant, and that's not a color in my photograph. So I'm going to start drawing. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make my first point. Now I'm going to come up here and notice that there's a little bit of a curve, so I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to come to the apex of the rim here, and I'm going to click and drag. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and drag. Now I've got a long angular line right here. I don't know how to say that, but you understand me. And so I don't need to put any anchor points in here. In fact, one rookie mistake is when people who are first using the pen tool tend to do this. They add a lot of anchor points without ever making use of those Bezier curves. And that's not what I want to see. I want to see that you are practicing the pen tool the way it's intended to be used. So I don't need any anchor points along this entire edge. I'm going to come all the way down and I'm going to click and drag slightly. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click and drag, and then I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click and drag, and then I'm going to end right there where the handle is. Now I'm zooming in really far, and you can see that I've got this weird sort of curve here, this weird blip. And that's because this tangent line, and you can't really see it too well. Let me change the color of my layer. Let's change that to dark blue. Okay, now we can see it a little bit better. This tangent line extends way beyond this point. Okay, so I just need to shorten that tangent line a little bit, and I can even move my anchor points in and get a nice precise drawing. I'm going to move this one out. Now I'm not using my pen tool here, I'm using my white arrow. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do another piece here. I'm going to do the handle, and click and drag, and that's the name of the game, is just clicking and dragging. I'm going to purposely deviate from the drawing here to show you how to fix that. Click and drag. And sometimes when I'm doing this, I'll even talk to myself saying click and drag over and over again, because I'm a little strange like that. Okay. And now here, I'm not going to finish my path, and I'll show you why in just a second. All right, so I have a few areas that are problematic, but I didn't stop to fix them. I wanted to finish my drawing because I can always go back with my white arrow and fix these things. I can shorten tangent lines, I can change direction of the tangent lines, and I can refine my drawing. So don't panic if right out the gate when you're using the pen tool, if something goes awry, because you can always fix it. So you can see I finished my drawing, and I took some liberties with the design, just having some lines extend in certain places. It doesn't really matter. This is your own visual interpretation of your photograph. And I'm going to come in here and do this one really quick too. And now zooming out, and that's another thing, keyboard shortcuts, you'll want to get very comfortable using Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out, and the space bar to move around in your artboard. So if I'm really zoomed in, to make sure that my lines are intersecting, and then I can use the space bar to move around my space. It's really easy to remember. I'm going to hide my photograph for the time being and just see how my lines look. And so far, so good. In some places, like down here, it's extending over, one line is extending over another, and that's okay. I'm just going to shorten that. And what I don't want, and this is what you want to be really careful about, is you don't want to have areas, for example, here, where the line doesn't meet another stroke. This open area is going to cause problems when you start applying swatches. So we want to make sure that's a closed area. And this looks pretty good.